What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some first impressions for Horizon Forbidden West. Sequel, of course, to Horizon Zero Dawn, and having played the first one just recently this year, I've been looking forward to diving into the second one, primarily just because I enjoy playing these big games and I've missed previously, just so I can fill in my own gaps, but this one in particular because I see a lot of conflicting opinions about it, and I always enjoy sort of figuring that stuff out for myself when I see that kind of thing, because most of what I've heard about this going into it is that people didn't like the story as much as the first one, but the gameplay was greatly expanded, and I'll see if that winds up holding true. But at least in the first couple of hours, I can more or less kind of see what people were talking about in terms of expanded gameplay and things, because a lot of what they try to do at the beginning, it seems like, is show off a bunch of new stuff, kind of rope in Aloy's newly gained status in the world that she is not a huge fan of, having saved Meridian from Hades last time. But that actually kind of brings me to the first thing I want to talk about primarily, which is that in my original Zero Dawn video, I mentioned that the story mentions that there was a ship that was part of a program called Far Zenith that was just going to leave the planet altogether in the face of the impending apocalypse 1,000 years ago. The first time it comes up, it's just kind of a neat little lore tidbit, and then they bring it up again in a much more conspicuous way towards the end of the game, and it doesn't exactly take a genius to see it's going to be involved there. And then I thought it was especially funny that that was essentially confirmed almost immediately, as one of the few opening scenes here takes great care to very much point out that this is a mission that happened, and at this point it's just Chekhov's gun, like you have to do something with it. So safe to say that'll be part of the story, of course. In the meantime, though, Aloy has been spending the last 6 months since the end of the previous game to run around and look for copies of Gaia so she can restart the AI that is supposed to be terraforming Earth and stop a secondary impending apocalypse now. You spend the opening sort of act searching for what ultimately turns out to be a fake copy that is not actually usable, which then brings you back to Meridian, only to find out that Silence, the guy helping us last time, did what he did at the end of that game, which was, of course, to salvage some piece of Hades rather than destroy it outright, and that he's taken off to the Forbidden West, where you're going to have to track him down to get the answers. Which is a little long-winded, though probably not surprising, because the game spends much of those opening couple of hours talking about, of course, the story up to this point, and some of that is tutorialization, which I wanted to touch on, because I was always curious, with pretty much any sequel, how they handle things like that. Like, for instance, there's a passing mention that Aloy ran into some trouble somehow and lost much of her equipment and everything, and while I'm not such a stickler that things like that bother me, given that, ultimately it's a game and there's got to be progress and everything, they do technically provide a reason for the lack of all the equipment you gained. And what's more, they actually frame the tutorial in a way where you are teaching Varl, someone who was part of the last game as well, how to use the Focus, which is the, of course, sort of augmented reality headset type thing that Aloy uses to get all this information. But they use Aloy teaching Varl about this to kind of convey the tutorial, and I thought that was a nice touch. Again, just wanted to mention it as a novelty. I'm always kind of curious about that stuff. Probably also worth a mention that first playthrough-wise, I am just jumping straight into Ultra Hard. I found the original game a little bit easy, and saving Ultra Hard for New Game Plus, which was technically required for an achievement, is not completely required here, and honestly I want the challenge to begin with, which means a lot of sneaking around in the beginning. But once you gain just even the first level, you're going to be introduced to the skill trees, and what I thought was especially interesting here is that some of the things that you earned through the skill trees previously are just part of your baseline toolkit here, such as the Silent Strike, of course, to take down enemies that I just mentioned. So it looks like they incorporated some of the skills you learned then into what Aloy can just do, and then they expanded these skill trees a great deal, which is what I am assuming then everyone is talking about when it comes to expanding the gameplay and types of combat. I'm especially interested in finding out about melee, as that was extremely basic in the original game, as you would expect. To be fair, we are fighting robot dinosaurs. I'm not exactly expecting a robust melee system. I've heard that it's more interesting here via, I think it's the warrior skill tree. But really, that's just one of several. There's a lot of skill trees, and the skill trees themselves actually have like these things called valor surges, where if you buy the skills around that surge, it then just kind of gives you the big ability in the middle. And it looks like those abilities have actually replaced even things like armor sets from the previous one. Like the passive shield you got from the best armor is one of these Valor surges. Now, as an example, you get a cloaking device in the stealth one, which I'm looking forward to messing around with. And that's even before we start talking about just navigational stuff, like the inevitable sequel involving a grappling hook, as is tradition. So it looks like even in terms of just baseline gameplay elements, they've really tried to up the ante here, and I can definitely see what people were talking about, and I'm genuinely looking forward to getting to the depth of that system. They've also introduced a bunch of new machines. That was, of course, a given. I've already liked the first few in the opening. From what I understand, there's some crazy ones like a giant elephant later, so I will certainly, of course, see what happens there. Pulling some of that together, though, just sort of a big question I have at the moment is if Forbidden West in particular is going to be able to make the open world more interesting, frankly. Not that I was upset or anything about Zero Dawn's open world. It just, was a pretty standard open world in a lot of ways. If anything, it was probably a little too full of machines in the sense that, you just run into them constantly and it's hard to just walk anywhere sometimes. And on top of that, the side quests were typically okay. None of them were really blowing me away or anything, and I'm hoping they've, put more effort into expanding that stuff, so there's actually fun stuff to explore in the Forbidden West. But as of right now, that is kind of where I'm at with this one. For the most part, I can kind of see what people were talking about already. Forbidden West really does seem like it put a lot of effort into expanding the gameplay and making, even the already interesting combat from the original that much more engaging via various systems and abilities. My main questions at this point are really just, how is the story? I've heard so many mixed things about the story of this one, obviously nothing specific for the sake of avoiding spoilers, and I just, at this point, have to know for myself what this is all about so I can have my own opinion on that subject, but genuinely looking forward to it. And then, of course, the stuff I just mentioned with the open world. I've enjoyed the first couple of hours, and I find myself, for whatever reason, surprisingly excited to jump into this one. I guess maybe it was a good first couple hours or something, but I'm actually pretty excited to fully engage with this one. That said, it does seem like it's going to take a while, frankly, not only because it is itself not exactly a small game. Estimates for 100% on this are anywhere from like 65 to 165 hours, which is a gigantic range, so I'm not exactly sure how to feel about that, and I guess we'll find out how long it takes. The other side of that, though, is not actually the game length. I have multiple other things going on right now, and I'm putting out this video early because I am going to take my time with this because of the length. I just also am going to have to deal with multiple other projects, one I'm already working on and can't talk about, 2 other releases happening in just the course of a couple days even. So this game won't have my full attention for a fair little bit, probably the next week and a half, give or take, and then I'm planning on using this to fill the void between that date and whenever Mafia: The Old Country releases on August 8th. So one way or another, you will eventually see the full review for this out of me, but it may very well take a while, so, don't expect it tomorrow or anything. And yes, I know people love to joke that I'll have it done in a few days, but genuinely, I'm aiming for like the first week of August with this one because of everything else I've got going on. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, though, that's pretty much all I've got for you. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, or you're looking forward to the review, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.